This episode is brought to you by DistroKid.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of ShopPay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Hey everyone, Chris DeMakes here, and I've got some exciting news. Chris DeMakes A Podcast is now on Patreon. Your support is what keeps this show going, allowing us to bring you deep dives into amazing songs from incredible artists every week. When you join our Patreon at chrisdemakes.com, you'll get instant access to hundreds of episodes of The After Party, our weekly bonus show where producer Chris Fafalius and I talk music history, trivia, tour stories, classic albums, and whatever else comes to mind. Plus, you'll get early ad-free episodes of Chris DeMakes A Podcast, unedited video versions of each episode, and, of course, a brand new episode of The After Party every single week. If our show brings you a little joy, help us keep it going strong for just a couple bucks a month at chrisdemakes.com. Not ready to commit? No problem. You can sign up for a free membership while you decide. Thanks so much, everyone, and I hope to see you all at the after party. It's Throwback Thursday.
Hey everybody, Chris Fafalius here. I'm going to keep this real short. I thought we could all use a little inspiration this week, so for Throwback Thursday, we're throwing it back to February 20th of 2023 when John Parr sat in for episode number 143 to discuss his hit 1985 single, St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion. If you didn't listen to this episode when it first came out, you're really going to like this one, so enjoy.
Hey everyone, today's guest is singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist John Parr from Worksop, England. Together we dissect the writing, recording, and inspiration behind the smash hit St. Elmo's Fire, taken from the 1985 movie soundtrack of the same name. John was fresh off a tour for his first self-titled album when producer David Foster contacted him to write a song together for a movie he was scoring called St. Elmo's Fire. The two wrote the song super quickly, and the lyrics were inspired by Rick Hansen, a Canadian paraplegic whose goal was to ride his wheelchair around the world, which he did. And the story which John explains is both amazingly touching and uplifting. I had fun connecting the dots on this one too, as many of the players involved we've either had as a guest here on Chris DeMakes A Podcast, or we've talked about at length. The musicians who played on this track are out of this world, and it was awesome to get John's take on all of it. If you were around in 1985, you know, it didn't get much bigger than the song St. Elmo's Fire. So for all this and a whole lot more, don't touch that dial.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast.
Well, hey, John, how are you?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
I am fantastic. We were talking a little bit before we got going here, and I'm just ecstatic to be talking to you. Grew up listening to your music. I was familiar with you before St. Elmo's Fire with the track Naughty Naughty that was getting blasted.
Hey, good on you, man.
Yeah, on commercial radio down in good old Florida, where I'm from.
from then, it's just St. Elmo's Fire happened. And as a kid, when you're on the radio, that was about as big as it got back then. So to me, it's like, oh, you were already this huge star with Naughty Naughty, but it really happened for you with St. Elmo's Fire, and it was so cool to see.
It exploded. I mean, it was recorded in Florida at Naughty Naughty, actually.
Really? Where'd you record that?
At Criteria. We did it down at Criteria, and down in Miami. It was my first big kind of break. I'd been in the biggest studios I'd been in till then were probably The Who. My manager was he'd been with The Who. He was Keith's driver from the 60s, actually, and then he became their road manager and then their kind of creative manager. And we were down in Florida after being in the Who studio at Ramport in London, down in Criteria for about 6 weeks. And Naughty Naughty was just the warm-up song. The album was written, and I just had this riff, and we just kind of warm up on the riff, and every day it got a bit more and more, and then I kind of figured it was the one.
Oh, that is so cool. And for the listeners, I've also recorded at Criteria. Our first major label record my band did. We cut the bass and drums down there, and it was just so cool to be in a legendary studio. Everybody recorded there, the Eagles, and it's legendary. So just a really cool studio and a great history. But your album, the self-titled one with Naughty Naughty, came out in 1984.
Yeah.
And, you by the end of the tour, I guess, for the record, David Foster had asked you to record a song for the film St. Elmo's Fire. And David Foster, we've talked about him on this show. He's a Canadian musician, composer, arranger. The guy's got 16 Grammys. He co-wrote She's a Beauty with the Tubes. We had the Tubes on here recently.
What a song.
Right. And there's your Toto connection, because Steve Lukather played on She's a Beauty. And David has history with Chicago and Peter Cetera. And when I looked at who played on St. Elmo's Fire, I love connecting the dots with this kind of stuff. It's so interesting. And of course, backing vocals by Richard Page from Mr. Mister. And that makes sense now. And I never knew why he was considered. But when Peter Cetera had left Chicago, Richard Page from Mr. Mister, who already, he was a huge star with that band, he was asked to sing for Chicago, which he declined. But the all-star band here, you have Steve Lukather playing on the track, David Foster, Steve Porcaro, and David Page, who we recently had on the show as well. So, and you look at the Jerry Hay on trumpet. Jerry played on Thriller. He played on the track Rock With You with Michael Jackson. He played with Shaka Khan, Earth, Wind and Fire, Lionel Richie.
Yeah, all the Totos up there. That's Jerry.
How did this happen with this stellar musical lineup? It's incredible.
Do you know what's strange, Chris? You talk about connecting the dots. What kind of on the broad headline. But from my side, it's bizarre. I've been a musician from being a little boy and turned pro when I was 12. I can remember my wife and I bought this little house in 1980, and we were really, really broke. And the albums that we had were the Earth, Wind and Fire one, the Toto 4, Foreigner 4. And I can remember I'd be in tears listening to that music thinking, man, I'm never, ever going to be able to compete with this. And yet within a few years, they were playing on my records. We were friends. And of course, I was on tour with Toto when I got the call from David Foster. So they kind of filled me in on David, because I didn't really know who he was. I was this kid from the north of England.
I had looked, you had toured that first record, as you said, with Toto. You're playing 10,000 seat amphitheaters and arenas across the U.S. I went back and looked at the tour dates. So that had to be surreal after what you just described about being broke 3 years earlier.
It was really amazing because I can remember I had a really great band. My band with me were the boys that had played on some of the recordings, and they were really killer players. And Toto really took to that because they were kind of kings of the hill at that time, and
sure.
My band, they'd say, man, you're matching us, the boys were so hot, and Toto was so magnanimous. They'd come up. I remember, Steve coming up saying, my name's Steve Lukather, I'm David Page, as if I didn't know who they were, And I always remember the very first sound check, they did their their warm up, and they said, "Look, let's give John an hour to do it." So you never hear it, man, do you? You know what it's like when you're an opening act. You get the dread of what, but they gave me the time, and they gave me their friendship. I used to travel on their tour bus all the time with Steve and Jeff. We were big pals.
I love hearing stories like that because especially back, you hear the stories, the bands back in the 80s, they would limit your PA use or the amount of stage room, and they, their crew would treat you like second-class citizens. And it sounds like you got along really well from the get-go.
The opposite. And it's funny, I think that's the way you can tell things. My manager was he was kind of an old scholar. He'd been in the game for 30 years. And he said to me, just the way that the other band's crews treat you will tell you where you're going. And I guess a lot of crew members could see that I was maybe on the way up and thought, hey, maybe there's a long-term gig here too, and so the crews were always really nice with me as well, and in fact, some of my pals from those days are the crews from those bands,
Had you, expressed interest or told anybody at the label or told David Foster, hey, I want to use my band, or was it always going to be the players that played on this? And what did your band think of that?
No, I mean, the John Parr 1 record was kind of my musicians, and I produced the record. And but then, obviously, with St. Elmo's, I knew I was on hallowed ground with David. And of course, it's like, who are you going to call? It's the greatest people in the world are on the end of the phone. And I can remember that, the recording of that record took place over a day. And it was like Jerry Hay came in, then Michael Landau came in, Bush, it was 3-hour sessions, and everybody was just, I'd never seen anything like it. It was just dynamite,
Well, and when you're talking about studio musicians of this caliber, there was nothing to fix things. There wasn't Pro Tools, okay? No. These guys were what I call ringers. They come in and they just nail their parts. They don't mess up. And if they do mess up, it's not messing up in the sense we're hitting wrong notes. It's like maybe you didn't like the part, and they can improvise on the spot. It's incredible.
Exactly. It's funny when you were talking about Richard Page, because it should have actually been Richard Marx doing the backup vocal on St. Elmo's.
Really?
It was Richard's day off. And yeah. And so, Richard Page came in and did the Just How Far I Go line and some of the PVs. I always say to Richard Marx, man, imagine what your career would have been like if you'd have just on my record.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Richard Marx, because I noticed that Bill Reichenbach Jr., who played trombone on St. Elmo's Fire, and Jerry Hay, who we talked about a moment ago and you just mentioned with trumpet, they played on some Richard stuff later in the 80s. So it's just a circular... It's incredible. And I also want to mention that Dave Amato provided backing vocals. He was the guitar player since the beginning for REO Speedwagon. And also I noticed that Carlos Vega, a huge session player who had played with James Taylor, among others, he is credited with drums on this track, but I swear this is a drum machine on this track.
Well, do you know the strange thing? I'd never seen it. It was Roger Lynn made this drum machine, I'm sure you're aware, called the Lynn drum. And this was the very first drum machine that had real drum samples in it. And it was the prototype. So it literally was, the Lindrum 1. And there was wires hanging out of it. And we just put, there's only David and I originally when we wrote the song. And we put the Lindrum down, and David, did the piano and the bass synth on it. And I agree with you. I think Umberto Gattaca clearly put some big of his, drum samples on top. I think probably the toms and the hat are the live editions.
Okay, I was gonna say the hat does sound live on here. That does sound live, and the toms, they sounded very 80s sounding, perfect for this track. Huge. yeah, these big huge toms.
I think there's some of those syndromes, those do hang underneath the kit as well. It's like throw the kids and sing, but everything had to be bigger than life, didn't it? And then,
It certainly did. And speaking of bigger in life, this song it's so triumphant and hopeful. The only other song, and I know there's other ones, but there's a couple songs that come to mind, like from the 80s. It's like Eye of the Tiger, Chariots of Fire, these songs that define a generation. And this song is just so uplifting and powerful.
Thank you, man. It's funny. I took a year off. I've just been completing a film. It's a documentary, and it's but we use an orchestral version of St. Elmo's at the end, and a brand new version of it, which is kind of, you know, that Joni Mitchell track when she sings "I've looked at life from both sides now," but it's the really old version. It's a bit like a Johnny Cash Empire of Dust. And I got a version of St. Elmo's like that. And it's funny, in both versions in this movie, it still explodes out the screen, you know.
And do you recall writing it? Was it a quick process, or did you labor over this one?
It's burned into my brain. It's funny, you know, it's like people always say there are two truths, aren't there? There's your truth and the other person's. And I had dinner with David about a year ago, and he was talking about the writing of it. And we'd not seen each other for a while. And it's funny, his memory was quite different. But I think, you got to imagine, David's, you know, must have done how many thousands of hits as David, you know, or tracks he's recorded. And I've done a lot, but I mean, that was like a blinding light in the middle. So I have a pretty good idea of what went down. And so, yeah, I went to Lighthouse Studios in LA. He'd called me and said, would I come over? So there's a little studio called Lighthouse, and it was nearly all done in the control room. David didn't want to write the song. He was exhausted. He was doing the St. Elmo's Fire score, which he'd never done a score for a movie before. So there's a lot of pressure. And he was also doing 10 original songs for the film with original artists. So it was like a massive thing. And so when I went, he said, look, man, I'm burned, you know, will you sing this? And it was an okay song, but it wasn't what I'd gone there for. And I kind of had to persuade him to just give me half an hour and let's go in the control room and try and write something. And we were batting stuff around for about an hour, and we kept coming up with these, what I thought were great things. And he changed. He just kept saying, we can do better. He was hooked. We can do better. And the third one in was St. Elmo's. And, you know, was lightning in a bottle. The longest thing about the writing of that song was that Beatles chord to get out of the chorus back into the key down, back to the verse. And I can remember him, because I had so little to do with the physical music. All I did was sing the melody. I kind of wrote the melody over those beautiful chords. Mm-hmm. And then obviously that night I went back to the hotel and wrote the lyric. But my biggest memory is that he was just spending forever.
It was how to get back to that A chord.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And that part's awesome. And you could
makes it. Yeah,
it does make it, and you can tell that. Well, at least I think it. You know, when someone composes on the piano, they typically will do some weirder key changes than just a guitar player, I find.
Yeah,
you know?
Me too. It's like a magical world. It's like another planet, isn't it? You know,
it really is. And you know, this guy's workload, David Foster. You were just talking about how much stuff he had going on. You know, he had 47 Grammy nominations. To have that many, you have to have quantity of songs. Think of how many songs he wrote outside of that.
It's amazing. You know, it is amazing. And even now I kind of discover things that he did, you know. I mean, I didn't realize he'd done After the Love Is Gone until we were talking last year. And I was saying, I think St. Elmo's was his first number one. And he went, no, I think After the Love Is Gone. But I don't think it was. I think that was a number two, you know.
So good. Well, I want to jump into the song now. John, it's 4 minutes and 8 seconds. The intro is 4 bars of hi-hat panned off left. And as we talked about, I think that's real hi-hat there. It's not a machine making that. And an electric piano comes in. On bars 5 through 8, the drums are in, as is I think this is a Yamaha DX7. Is that correct? Playing the bass part?
Yes.
Okay, it sounded like it, and again, we just had David Page on here, who was credited with this song, so I figured this was the DX7, and that DX7 is playing a galloping bass part. On bar 7, a cool guitar lick swirling left to right, and then a very 80s sounding drum fill takes us into verse 1. I love it. We don't even have to put the sample in. John just did it for us. That drum part is so 80s. It just screams 80s. It's great.
But the bit before that is that beautiful harmonized guitar bit. Not the riff, not the dare, but that little thing. I don't know how it made that sound. It's so magnificent.
It is. It's such a great flourish. Well, verse 1, and I want to talk to you about this because I could make an argument that the first two lines here are the verse, and then you get a pre-chorus that goes back to the verse.
Yeah.
You don't see the writing on the wall. Passing by, moving straight ahead, you knew it all. But maybe sometime if you feel the pain, you'll find you're all alone. Everything has changed.
Growing up, you don't see the writing on the wall. Passing by, moving straight ahead, you knew it all. But maybe sometime, if you feel the pain, you'll find you're all alone. Everything has changed.
Do you know that it was not written about the movie? It was written about a wheelchair athlete called Rick Hansen.
I did read that, yes.
So basically, I didn't see the film before I wrote the lyric. All I did was Joel Schumacher, the director, came down because I was really struggling to get inspiration for the lyric. And he came down because he'd written it to try and sell the story. And it just wasn't hitting home with me. And David showed me a video of a local news broadcast of a guy from Vancouver who'd recently broken his back in a car accident. And he was already an athlete, but he was going to be decided he was going to be a wheelchair athlete, and he was going to wheel this wheelchair around the world to raise money for spinal research and make money and awareness. So what I wanted to do was tell his story about this man's journey around the world, but I also wanted to make it ambiguous so the film company wouldn't exactly know I was singing about something else. So when I talk, but obviously at this stage, it's about a kid who is just a teenager. He's a jock, and he's got the world at his feet, and all he can see is what's in front of him. And suddenly, man, that toolbox smashed into his back, broke his spine, and it grounded him, and so really that's what it is. Growing up, you don't see the writing on the wall. It's like you just think you're gonna rock all the way through it, and moving straight ahead, you knew it all. You just passing through, and of course he got this anchor dragging behind him now.
Wow. Now, did you read the story of this fella and decided that was the inspiration?
No, they just showed me. David showed me the video cassette, and he said it's nothing to do with the movie. He said, but this guy came in the studio last week and he's on the Man in Motion tour, and he wants to wheel. And there was no publicity because wheelchairs, this was, the Paralympics didn't make it on television much in those days, and if you saw somebody in a chair, you didn't really know where to look. And there was no Facebook, there was no internet. So this guy had got no publicity, and it was just not a hot story. And for me, it was such an incredible story that I thought would unfold. So I wanted to tell the story of what this journey would be.
That's awesome. Well, on the line, but maybe sometime if you feel the pain, you'll find you're all alone. Everything has changed.
There you have it.
The melody changes there.
Yeah.
So that to me is a pre-chorus that then comes back down for the second half of the verse.
Yeah.
Play the game. You know you can't quit until it's won. Soldier on. Only you can do what must be done. You know in some way you're a lot like me. You're just a prisoner and you're trying to break free.
Well, it's entirely wheelchair based at that moment in time. But of course, but now when you step back, it's an every man's story and every woman's story. But in that moment, it's entirely about this guy, he's in the chair, he's a prisoner, and he's trying to break free. He's trying to show he can still do it. But also, in the movie, I knew that these kids were struggling with, that rite of passage. So I thought, well, I could get away with my directness about the guy in the chair without physically saying it, and everybody will still think it's Rob Lowe and Emilio Estevez struggling with, getting into an older student.
Yeah, the actors from the actual movie.
Yeah,
and who can't get behind a lyric of perseverance and being triumphant. And this is universally speaking here. You wouldn't directly relate it to being in a chair, what this guy's struggles were.
It's difficult as well because it's kind of the story of me, and I have to be careful not to be, you could accuse me of being cliche, but it's like really from the heart, for me, it's like, it's such a passionate cause. The two things in my life are kind of the military and disablement, and they're my kind of two torches that I've carried for more than half my life. And so to get that opportunity to kind of tell that story in that company,
Well, would you agree that the back half of these verses act as kind of like a pre-chorus? So the melodies change on them, it's a different feel here.
Totally. Yeah, it's kind of, you've got this kind of dark bit, and then this kind of really kind of, even though those pre-chorus bits, they've got that kind of pain in them, haven't they?
Yes.
Soulful pain in them. Yeah,
absolutely. When I research for these episodes, I'll go to different guitar chord pages on the internet and scour different things. Not one time did I see pre-chorus. They all considered this a verse, and I kind of was like, I disagree with that, so I wanted to get your take on it. It seems there's a separation there.
It's funny, you call it a pre-chorus, I call them links, but nearly everything I write is that format. I always, sometimes you get lucky, don't you? And the chorus comes in your first verse and that becomes the song. But really, I've always gone verse, link, verse, link, chorus,
Never heard it called a link. I may have to start using your vernacular there, John. I like it. Well, there's a lot going on here in verse 1. The drums are in off the top with that DX7 playing the bass, and big piano chords are here on all the chord changes on the pre-choruses. There's another arpeggiated synth part that comes in, and I think maybe a guitar is mimicking behind that. Do you recall?
Yeah, you're dead right. Yeah. It's like really funny, it's like depending, obviously it's originally vinyl, and you listen to them, but now as it's kind of gets remastered, you suddenly start hearing other bits where different kinds of digital compression comes in. You suddenly start to, it's almost like you see the underwear, don't you, of how it was done.
Yeah. Right? Exactly. Well, on the second half of verse 1, the trumpet panned off right comes in. And are those keys ghosting those trumpets too there?
I don't think so, but it's really funny, had that song not had a deadline on it, David would have took those out. The dead, da 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 da. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, David would have, he thought they were too corny. But
really,
yeah, it's funny. But I mean, everybody knows that bit now, but but given a week, they would have gone, so I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, I don't think there's any dead weight in this song. No. I wouldn't take anything out of it. On the line, play the game. There's this quick, it's like a lightning bolt strikes. These big distorted guitars just come in for a quick second there.
Yeah.
And it's just little production flourish that I love. Those trumpets come right off after the line. Play the game, you can't quit until it's won. You get that trumpet panned off right, and it swells into the word soldier on. You get that guitar thing again on the second line. What must be done, that guitar happens. And on the last two lines, that arpeggiated synth part, and those guitars come back in. Before you get the big drum hit, doom, panned off right, and then a trumpet stab that takes us right into chorus 1.
Very Jerry, isn't it? That only Jerry can make that slur on that trumpet that way,
It is awesome.
Yeah.
get two little hook setups that doom. That it's just a simple drum thing, that happens, and then the trumpet stab right after it is such a perfect setup for the chorus.
It's one of those pieces. I can remember when we used to do early on when we used to do the song in the days of the Emulator 2. Do you remember the old Emulator 2?
I do.
And we used to have all Jerry's stuff on there. So you just hold a key down and it would play the actual brass line. And some of those brass lines in isolation, they're just, we're used to hearing them stick their head out like on songs like Rosanna, but on St. Elmo's, they're buried more, but they're so wonderful. I never heard anything like that Jerry A brass section. It was just so special and such an integral part of the song.
Yeah, just the general nature of horns, when used correctly, can be triumphant. Look at sports games. They have the marching band. It's a triumphant call of celebration, and I can't imagine this track without the horns.
No.
They just bring such a great quality to it.
Absolutely.
Hey everybody, don't go anywhere. We got lots more with John Parr after a few words from our sponsors.
Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits, to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with a Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus and present in Virginia. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, I'm Chris Fafalius, producer of Chris DeMakes A Podcast, and also host of One Hit Thunder. Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we take a look into a one-hit wonder band or artist to determine if they deserved more success or if they were lucky to even have a hit at all. We've covered When in Rome, Jaquan, Shanice, Yellow, Squirrel Nut Zippers, Jesus Jones, Positive K, Mazzy Star, and hundreds more. With new episodes every Wednesday and special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we always have nonstop fun, and maybe, if we're lucky, we discover some new favorite music. So if you love great songs and you often find yourself asking, whatever happened to that band? Check out One Hit Thunder wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, well, chorus 1. I'm going to read the lyrics here, John, and have you break them down. I can see a new horizon underneath the blazing sky. I'll be where the eagle's flying, higher and higher. Gonna be your man in motion. All I need's this pair of wheels. Take me where my future's lying. St. Elmo's fire, and you get 5 oohs after that. Little vocal scat there.
Over the chord change, yeah.
Yes, over that chord change.
Yeah.
And what's happening lyrically here? What are we continuing to say?
Well, that's Rick Hansen wheeling up a mountainside, and he's looking at St. Elmo's fire is a freak of nature. It's when phosphorus burns in the sky. So it's St. Elmo's the patron saint of sailors, fishermen also in some countries. And it's when the phosphorus glows around the ship's mast, sometimes around airplanes' wings. And to me, this was Rick wheeling up a mountain, and he could see St. Elmo's fire burning in the sky, and he was wheeling towards his dream. That was his dream. And again, it fitted because it said St. Elmo's fire. Very often, film companies don't want you to say the name of their movie in the song. It sounds strange. I've had it loads of times with when I did the Running Man, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. They wanted me to take Running Man out, because they've lived with the title for 5 years, so it's a dead title. It's not like you just wrote a song and you record it, but a movie's, they've lived with that title. And for them, I guess it would lose the magic. But fortunately, they didn't get a chance to change their mind. It was such a tight deadline. And it fitted as a metaphor for Rick's dream,
That's really interesting. I never would have thought that movie companies would have not wanted the name. You think of Ghostbusters. That's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second. So that's a really interesting take. The other thing I wanted to bring up was whose idea was it? The song's called St. Elmo's Fire, but in parentheses, it says Man in Motion.
Yeah, that's me, because when Rick set off from Vancouver on his tour to go around the world, there was nobody with him other than the guy. When the accident happened, the guy that was in the accident with him, he was the relief driver for Rick. So there was a truck that was going to go around the world, and Rick was behind it in the wheelchair. And on the side of the truck, it said Rick Hansen, Man in Motion World Tour. So I was insistent that I called it Man in Motion. And because the deadline was so tight, I thought we could get it past the film company before they kind of woke up to what is this all about. And we did.
Wow, well, that's interesting. A lot of times labels would make you put something, in parentheses, like you'd be your wordy song title, but the song title wouldn't be in the lyrics, but there'd be a refrain somewhere in the song of,
exactly.
I got you over and over again, and so that'd be like, whatever the song title was, and then I got you.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you called for it to be Man in Motion.
I just thought that this guy's just not going to get any press or I just wanted to give it as much oxygen as I could. And I remember, I was touring a lot at that point, and I would always tell his story. I was touring with Tina Turner doing the Private Dancer tour, and every night I would tell the story of this guy. He was only a few months into the journey, at that point, but I would say he's going to make it, and this is his song. I mean, it took him 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days to wheel 50 miles a day around the world in a wheelchair. And so I'd be telling that story every night long before he ever did it, you know.
That is awesome. Well, you just mentioned about that turnaround on the oohs that you have. You get that weird chord, and then it's a 2-bar turnaround on the A chord. I call it this reset. It's a reset for the verse. Stereo guitars and horns are here, and at the very end here, right before we get into verse 2, I call it the 80s video game synth sound that takes us into verse 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you recall when the sounds were going down in the studio? Was there some, like, for that sound, for instance, was there any like, hey, maybe we should try a different one, or was just like, that's it, everyone's in agreement?
It literally was like putting a jigsaw together, and it was literally like somebody just picked a piece up and put it in. And I don't recall anybody going, that didn't fit, you know. It literally was kind of meant to be lightning in a bottle, you know. And I can, you know, it's like even with the guitars, you were talking about those guitar sounds. David would say to Michael Landau, can you give a bit more juice on that? And he'd just click a pedal, and you already thought he was there, and yet there was this other element that he would just at the, you know, a bit more right hand and a bit more of the pedal, and bang, you know, just kept rising and rising, you know.
I got goosebumps,
Steve
man.
Bodica,
you know,
Steve Bodica was playing keyboard. That's right, as well, I believe, on that. Yeah,
that's so cool. I got goosebumps because this is, my listeners have heard me say it. This is, you know, driving around as a kid, listening to this song in my parents' car. I never thought in a million years I would get the breakdown like this. It's so cool. Verse 2 is probably one of my favorite parts of the song because of some of the production stuff that happens. Burning up. Don't know just how far that I can go. And there's a backing vocal, just how far I go. Soon be home. Only just a few miles down the road. I can make it. I know I can. You broke the boy in me, but you won't break the man.
You imagine if you're in that wheelchair and you're doing 50 miles a day, and if you want to give up, when you open the door to give up, there's no press pack. You can just go home and nobody knows. You know, they were just two guys. It wasn't a story anybody knew. And it was like, if at the end of this thing, you go on and you just click some of the footage and you can see, this is what I saw, you know, this little 10-minute video thing by a local news station in Vancouver. And it was a guy driving through, you know, just wheeling through the rain, or he'd got ice packs on his shoulders. And this man, he tore both shoulder blade muscles 4 weeks into it. And coming from Canada, as soon as he got on the American roads, the cops put him on the B roads because they said he was holding traffic up. So he was like wheeling on dirt tracks, and all he had was a bucket, you know, to throw $1 in, you know. And so that's it, you know, burning up, don't know how far I can go. Soon be home, only just a few miles down the road. It's like he's hypnotizing himself in my head, you know.
And you said something so profound a second ago, talking about there was no one there keeping tabs. He could have just packed up and went home.
Yeah, man. When he tore his shoulders, you know, there's only him and his buddy, and they said, you know, you might as well forget it, man. You know, it's like, we'll do it again. And he just didn't quit. He just didn't quit, you know.
Again, the word perseverance, and the song just speaks to that. Well, again, probably one of my favorite parts of the song is here in verse 2, because this killer, clean, like jazz chorus sounding guitar comes in. It's really sparkly, and I'm assuming that's Steve Lukather. It's just awesome.
Sounds like a Strat kind of out of phase, doesn't it? That
yes.
Kind of long train running kind of vibe.
It's almost a little funky too.
Yeah.
It's so good. And the backing vocals here, just how far I go, was that Dave and Richard? Because it almost sounded like women singing that backing vocal.
No, it's Richard
there.
Page. just how far
it is.
It is Richard Petty.
I know his voice is high, but man, that sounds like women singing that. On the line, soon to be home, only just a few miles down the road. The horns come in here. Love what the horn textures are doing there. And then the pre-chorus, I can make it, I know I can. There's a great new electric piano part that comes in there. And on the last line, we get that drum hit again with that stab on the trumpet to take us into chorus 2. And I'm calling this 1.5 choruses because we get a half on the back. So the first half of the chorus here is all the same lyrics as chorus 1. I did mention earlier, there's only one harmony here, and the harmony is on St. Elmo's Fire. On that line, you get a harmony. The rest of it isn't harmonized, but it does sound like the choruses are double-tracked vocally. Do you recall? Yeah, I mean, that really became a way that I recorded from then on. What I'll tend to do is verses always single, the links or the pre-choruses, I like to have such a subtle double track of me. And then the choruses, I will have I usually my double tracking, I really try to make it really kind of Peter Cetera tight, that kind of, you can't quite tell it's double track. So I do like it. And my voice, I'd not really discovered, and David discovered it, that there's the kind of a little bit of magic to my voice when there's two of me. It just kind of makes that kind of almost a human harmonizer kind of vibe, It's awesome. I mean, the only part in the song's the middle 8, the bridge, really, where I can hear that double. And I like that I can hear it there. It's great. We'll get to that in a moment. Yeah. But the other half of chorus 2, the lyric changes here. It's, I can climb the highest mountain, cross the wildest sea. I can feel St. Elmo's fire burning in me, burning in me. It's really strange because he literally did cross mountain ranges and he crossed deserts. He also wheeled across the Great Wall of China as well. So not all of it, but a great part of it. And of course he was famous by then. When he did the Great Wall of China, a million Chinese people were lining the streets singing St. Elmo's Fire. It was amazing. Oh, that is so cool. You can't imagine, at that moment in time, I was kind of sharing his dream, and trying to just tell that story. But I can remember doing the vocal. I think that's part of the reason the song lives on, because lots of people tell me they got through illnesses with it and got through college with it and difficulties in their life. And I think because I'm kind of the vessel for Rick's story and I was kind of all consumed, I knew in that moment what we'd done. It wasn't a surprise to me that this thing became what it became. It was like God-given. I just felt it. I remember I went to the restroom after I sang the song, and I'd never done it in my life. I fell to my knees and I gave thanks for what I'd been given. I knew I'd been given something, and that's what we captured, in that moment. It's so beautiful how much that touched you and how it came through in song. It's meant to be, yeah, man. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that. There's a big drum fill after chorus 2 that takes us into an 8-bar turnaround, like a musical interlude before the bridge. There's a cool synth and horn and guitar interplay that's happening here. And basically, this turnaround is the chorus chord progression played in A. I love where the chords and the keys here and how it's awesome. I'm at a loss for words how they interject together. I can remember when David, had always got that intro. So even before he wrote the song, he'd always got because he'd used it in the movie.
And I can remember, because it was his first movie score, he confided in me, and I don't think he'd mind me saying, obviously he worked with Quincy Jones a fair bit, and he would ring Quincy and say, look, you know, he was looking for a bit of encouragement, because you're in virgin territory. You might have so many Grammys, but a movie score's different. And Quincy said to him, man, if you've got a theme, if you've got something, milk it for all it's worth, just keep going, you know. And so fortunately that bled into the song, became the intro of the song, and obviously came into that shot. It's like a new character walking into a movie, isn't it? And
it is.
And it takes it and just lifts it up another peg, you know.
It is so good. Well, the second half here, when we get into the bridge, all the instruments I just spoke of, the horns and the synths, they all go up an octave.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's some really cool tubular bell sounds. I don't know if that was done on the keys or what here. Do you recall?
I think that's DX. I think that's that great DX that my old buddy Harold Faltermeyer did for Top Gun. Remember that? The low one, the low tubular.
Yeah.
That start. Everybody knows that start Top Gun, you know, and it's that, but probably 2 octaves higher.
It's so cool because it just lifts this whole part, and this whole thing is, just when you start singing, it's a lifting moment in and of itself.
Yeah.
And when everything goes up an octave, it's great. Just once in his life, a man has his time, and my time is now. I'm coming alive.
There's a bit in the movie where Emilio Estevez, he's been chasing the girl all along and can't get her. And he's invited to the cabin to meet her and her boyfriend. But as he leaves, she kind of rushes up and kisses him. And it's kind of, I made the wrong choice kind of thing. And that was his moment. That was for once in his life, a man has his time. But of course, not really. It was about Rick when he eventually pushed through the tape, in my mind, when he got back to Vancouver, having done 25,000 miles. But I knew the film company would buy it because, you know, they think it was, Emilio getting the girl.
And I'm sorry if you mentioned already, did you ever get a chance to meet Rick or his family?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I know Rick pretty well. David and I, because as you can imagine, over that 2 years, 2 months, there were a lot of hurdles to get over, and money wasn't coming in. You know, they weren't funded. There was no sponsor. So David and I would do benefits. So particularly when they got back to Canada, he was 6 months late. So he was trying to cross Canada east to west in the Canadian winter. And it can be minus 40, you know. And so we had to get him a 4-wheel drive chair made that worked with chains that drove the front wheels. So we did a few shows to raise money for that. And we did a deal with McDonald's because he was starting to raise money and awareness. McDonald's said to me, look, if you let us change the lyric a little bit, we'll put 50 cents for every burger we sell for 6 weeks into the fund. So we did that. That put about $6 million into the coffers.
Wow.
It was amazing. But yeah, I did a thing with Rick about 3 months ago. He just got inducted into the Natural History Museum of Canada, where all the memorabilia from Man in Motion, the wheelchair, well, all the chairs, the clothes and everything, are now part of, a Canadian hero section in the museum.
That's so cool. Well, I've heard St. Elmo's Fire hundreds and hundreds of times over the years, and until I get under the microscope here, and this has happened with other songs, I just trip out sometimes, and here's another one of those moments. We get into chorus 3, you don't see this a lot, John, where the lyric changes.
Yeah.
Right off the top. Usually you'll get like in the second chorus here, the back half changes, and the end of a song, but here it's right off the top, and I love this lyric. I can hear the music playing. I can see the banners fly. Feel like a man again. I'll hold my head high. Gonna be your man in motion. All I need's this pair of wheels. Take me where my future's lying. St. Elmo's fire. So you get the back half, but those first two lines were different. How did that come about? Was there ever any fear of changing the first two lines of the last chorus?
It was the third act. So it's like in a movie or in a play. I told the story at the beginning, what happened in the middle. So I wanted the success. So this is him wheeling back into Vancouver 2 years before he did. And a million people lining the streets and brass bands playing, all the bit. And that's exactly what did happen. But 2 years after I sang it. So that's telling the future, really. So that's what I saw in my mind, that he was wheeling back into his hometown. And when he left, 3 men and a dog waved him off on a rainy day, in 1985. And when he returned, millions of people. David and I played that day, the 25,000 people in the arena as he wheeled through the tape was just spectacular.
Oh, that is awesome.
And David made me sing the line. Have you noticed the meter of the line is different on the second line?
Yes.
Yeah, that was David, because everything else is like really kind of machine gun. Well, let me think. I can hear the music playing. I can see the banners fly. Normally I would have gone, feeling like a man again. But Dave went, feel like a man. Made me stretch it.
I can see the banners fly. Feel like a man again. I love my head high.
I love the melody change there.
Yeah.
And also, I'm happy I got the lyric right, John, because on like 15 different sites, they have the lyric.
But most of them are wrong.
Yeah, it's the lyric was, feel like you're back again
It's
and
wrong.
hope riding
It's
high. I'm
completely
like,
wrong.
what is that?
Feel like
Yeah.
again. I mean, it's just somebody listening. I never say "gonna be your man in motion" either. I always say "gonna be a man in motion," and it's like feel like a man again. I'll hold my head high. Maybe it's just my diction on the record, but yeah, I've noticed people get that line wrong.
Well, the other thing I love here, right off the top, I can hear the music playing. I can see the banners fly. We get a harmony there. The harmonies weren't there in the other choruses.
Yeah.
And on the line, gonna be your man in motion. All I need's this pair of wheels. Harmony there. The horns here are now playing a new fluttery horn part with these great stabs. What they're doing here is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. I mean, that's real kind of Earth, Wind and Fire. But of course, Jerry did a lot of that Earth, Wind and Fire stuff as well,
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Phil Collins milked it to death, didn't he? On I think,
yeah. Phil made a career out of it.
The studio or whatever, Yeah, but whenever we do it live, and you never hear it, it's going on the top end in the chorus, isn't it? And it's like you hardly hear it, but it's like almost doing a tambourine part, but it's actually kind of fifths and a thumb down on the keyboard, I
was to say that was the DX7 again, right? That comes.
It was a
there.
DX7, I think, and Davey doing that thing again. It's those harmonies. That's why he's got so many Grammys. It's like we can just take it another bit further. It's like milking it dry, isn't it? It's just putting every bit in,
And that part has like this almost overtone that like off in the left speaker. It's like something's happening there, and I don't know exactly. I think it's
no,
the
you
DX7.
can't figure it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's really awesome. Well, the second part of chorus 3 is the same lyrics that we get in the other choruses. I can see a new horizon underneath the blazing sky. We get a harmony there. The second line on higher and higher, we get a harmony. The third line, gonna be your man in motion. All I need's this pair of wheels. There's harmonies on that, and of course, there's a harmony on St. Elmo's Fire. And then we get the last part of the chorus here, which is the turnaround lyric in chorus 2. I can climb the highest mountain, cross the wildest sea. There's a harmony there. I can feel St. Elmo's fire burning in me, burning in me. I can feel it burning. Ooh, burning inside of me. And it starts to fade there on that line, burning in me. The song fades out and it comes to an end. What was it like hearing this for the first time? The mix that you got back. What were your thoughts?
It's like Neil Armstrong walking on the moon and saying, was that such a big deal for me? Yeah? I mean, success came quite late to me, and FM radio was huge in in the 80s in America, and we just didn't have stereo radio, and certainly not pumping like that. So I can always remember hearing Naughty Naughty on the radio for the first time, and it exploding out the speakers. I always wanted that to be a song that made you pull over and kind of listen to what was going on. But St. Elmo's Fire sonically just took a different dimension on, because I obviously it's David and Umberto Gatica who mixed it, but he can get a dimension to the mix that's still hard to top. The speaker is full from top to bottom, isn't it, with sound and clarity.
Yeah.
It never ceases to amaze me that just the sonic of it, you know.
I think that's what strikes me the most, is that what you just said, the clarity. I cranked it up last night in my car. I went to go get groceries. I just cranked it. I listened to it like 3 times. And I'm like, this song's almost 40 years old, and it sounds absolutely amazing. I wouldn't change a thing.
No, it is. And also it's a very difficult thing to be a part of for the rest of your career, because obviously you're chasing it on every level.
Right.
You know, I mean, vocally, I was at my absolute peak. I'd just come off the Toto tour, you know, so I'd been screaming John Parr One record every night with them.
I'm sure being out with them upped your game too. You want to,
boy, man. You're with the Kings, you know. I mean,
yeah.
That was the blessing of my live touring career was quite short in America, but you know, was Toto, did Tina Turner for a bit, did Heart for a while, and then Journey too, you know. So kind of kings of the game, you know. It was, was a wonderful learning curve for me.
That's awesome. Well, John, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sitting in today. This was an absolute pleasure. And before we break, is there anything you'd like to leave the listeners with? What you got going on? Any tours coming up? What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, watch out, really. I mean, this film, I took a year off to make this movie. It's called Unconquered. And it's the story of, it's a documentary, but a drama documentary about 2 soldiers who were severely injured, both mentally and physically, in the line of duty. And the film charts their journey back through sport to some semblance of normality. And it's kind of carrying the flag, you know. St. Elmo's 1985 was, you know, Man in Motion, about a guy wheeling around the world. And Unconquered is this continuing waving the flag, you know, and trying to make the wheelchair and also mental health. That's the new thing, isn't it? That, you know, in the 80s, we never considered mental health. You know, it was people were off their heads on coke or whatever. Yeah. But that was it, you know. But, you know, it's difficult. The world, you know, a lot of self-analysis, and it's a tough place out there. And the thing that energizes me to keep going and keep doing it is to kind of, in some small way, trying to, you know, help make a difference, you know.
Well, that is very, very awesome. And again, thank you so much.
God bless you both. To both Chris's. Great talking with you, man.
No more lonely nights with a restless heart. Roll the dice, make a brand new start. When the world you knew got shattered, you and me were all that mattered. Just one way I'm gonna lose this restless heart, running away with you.
I hope you all enjoyed that conversation with John Parr. And Chris and I got to have a conversation about that conversation, which we're going to do right after a few quick words from our sponsors.
I don't think it overstates things to say that the Beatles were the greatest gift to entertainment and culture of our time, a secular religion, if you will, with their universal appeal and demonstrable impact on people's lives. I'm Robert Rodriguez, host of Something About the Beatles. With every episode, I speak with historians, musicians, artists, and Beatle witnesses, all in the service of fresh insights into the most joyous cultural entity the world has ever known. I hope you'll join me and listen to Something About the Beatles, now on Evergreen and wherever you get your podcasts.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock NBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Pandolfi inviting you to check out the new season of my podcast, Inside the Musician's Brain, with new episodes airing now.
Hearing it in that room, these guys playing this thing and trying to figure out how to play this song was mind-blowing. It's so inspiring to know there's so much more to it than you ever thought. And it just opened another door.
But when people find faith because they need to, in terms of just filling a void to feel better without actually being better, that's when it becomes a crutch, much like, drugs and alcohol do.
Man, I don't have all the time in the world here. If I want to be a professional bluegrass musician, I felt like I had to take a very strategic approach, just trying to get rid of the barriers and figure out what those barriers were.
The feelings still come and I have to reckon with that, but I think I have better ways of moving forward and not being stuck, which I think was the killer for me.
Catch all that and so much more on the new season of Inside the Musician's Brain.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.
Hey, this is Steve Choi, host of the Musicians Guild podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Within the four walls of the Musicians Guild, we'll be discussing the habits, idiosyncrasies, experiences, and general psychology of my friends and peers, all involved with music in various capacities. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hi, this is Chad Nicefield. And this is Justin Press. We're the host of Making Waves, the Shiprock podcast, a part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. We're inviting you to sail away with us on an epic journey in musical enlightenment. Every week, we bring you only the best artists in rock music and discuss everything from the cruise, to the stage, to the saga of being a professional recording artist. We'll have lots of special guests along the way, so tune in every week.
Your stateroom is available every Monday morning, so welcome aboard.
Hey friends, have you been loving Chris DeMakes A Podcast? Well, spread the love by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't hesitate to share what you enjoy about the show in an actual written review on Apple Podcasts. Not only does it help more people discover us, but we often read reviews in the wrap segment of the show. It's a quick, cost-free way to support us and takes just a minute of your time. Your reviews mean the world to us and help us keep the podcast thriving. Thank you for being a listener, and thank you for being a friend.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes A Podcast, all you have to do is email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is The All Right, a punk band based out of Los Angeles, California, consisting of twin brothers Johnny and Jamie Reyes. Their first full-length, In Loving Memory, was just released. You can find all their stuff on Bandcamp. Here's a snippet of their song, Reignite.
Try again. Get off your knees, rise up again. Try again. Don't quit now, 2 strikes with edge.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
So, Chris, how many times did you get chills during that episode?
Like the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, what an inspiring, uplifting story. Just makes sense that this song feels so triumphant and so uplifting, right?
It is. It literally is. The subject matter is. I wish that I knew that story. I've always liked this song. I got to tell you one thing about this song real quick, just from a personal perspective. You know how the first time I ever heard this song was? This is the strangest way to hear a song for the first time, was as a kid, 8 or 9 years old, something. I was taking piano lessons. And in my first ever book, like your basic book, you're talking like Mary Had a Little Lamb type stuff, St. Elmo's Fire was in there. Just like a real basic version of St. Elmo's Fire. So the first time I ever heard the song was from learning how to play it on piano. Now I love the actual song, but I just thought that was cool. But man, oh man, I counted 4 times I got chills during this 4 different parts where he's talking about Rick Hansen and his Man in Motion tour. Like, I didn't know about that. That's incredible.
I had read about it, but I kind of I didn't think it was the whole, I don't know. Maybe I downplayed it in my mind. I had read a lot, as I do while researching these episodes, but just to hear it from John's perspective and how it all came about, it's absolutely fascinating. As well as, I think another goosebump moment for me was I'm just proud of this show, Chris. I'm proud of what we created. And I talked about connecting the dots. We've had so many players that were involved in this song that either we've had on the show or we've talked about. And I mean, what an all-star lineup. It doesn't get any better than this.
It's a crazy lineup on this song. I didn't realize that either. And the connections to past guests that we've had, or like you said, at least people we've discussed. We've discussed David Foster in the past. Obviously, we had David Paich on here. And just, how the way everything ties together is insane.
Absolutely. And, these guys, again, John talked about they had messed with a bunch of different ideas. And then he's like, no, I want to write something else. I'm not feeling these songs that David Foster had lying around or whatever. And they went in and he, how many times we heard this, like a broken record. They went in and they knocked this thing out in a couple hours. It's amazing. Yeah.
And he said each idea they had was like, oh, that's good. He liked what they had. But David Foster kept pushing it like, no, we can do better. We can do better. And like you said, it sounds like in the matter of an hour or two, they wrote this incredible song and then got all the best players on the track. And even, what John Parr accomplished, not only as a songwriter, but also the tours he did are insane. Like, he did the tour with Toto, toured with Tina Turner, with Heart. What was it? He said another one.
Yeah, with Journey as well.
Journey! Jeez! Could you ask for 4 better tours than that? That's crazy.
No, and John, he had been slugging it out for years. He admitted that he was kind of broke a couple years before the record came out, and it was just one thing after the other. He just kept meeting these people. That was his connect the dots moment. He's just like, I can't believe this. It's just, every time I turn around, it's I never in a million years, dreamt that I would be working with this caliber of talent.
It's also really awesome how he was able to write a song that not only told the story of Rick Hansen and also kind of told his own story in a way. He said that it's kind of like telling his story. Like you said, he went from being broke to writing this song with all the best musicians you could imagine, doing these huge tours only in the matter of a couple years, and also fit perfectly with the movie St. Elmo's Fire. It was just the lyrics were just vague enough that anyone could relate to them. Whatever your mountain you're climbing is, whatever you're working towards, you could relate to this song. I think that's songwriting at its best.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised what John had said about movie companies, film companies not wanting the title of the movie in a song. And I was like, wait a second, the first one that comes to mind is Ghostbusters, but then you think about like Back to the Future. There's no song that says Back to the Future. It was Power of Love or Back in Time. So that was an interesting take.
Yeah, I was curious as to why that was, because your instinct would be like, oh, you want the song for the movie to be called the same thing as the movie. But maybe you brought up Ghostbusters. Well, Ghostbusters, I mean, I like Ghostbusters, but it's kind of like a cheesy song, right?
Yes.
And maybe you wanted a serious coming-of-age movie or whatever you would consider St. Elmo's Fire. You don't want people to have that same association. You want to have the song stand on its own and be this hit song from the soundtrack. Maybe that's the thinking, that they don't want people to think that it's cheesy, that it's almost like, I bring this up a million times, Ghostbusters 2. Bobby Brown had the rap where he literally tells the plot of Ghostbusters 2. I guess maybe they don't want that.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So maybe that's why it is. But who knows?
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this track. It was, you would have been, you'd have been about 4.5 when this song 5 when it came out, but I lived it. I was there when it came out. MTV played this video to death. It was everywhere. One of the biggest songs, and to get to sit across from John and talk about it was so cool.
It was very cool. And I have to let everybody know, because I told you this as soon as we got off. I loved this guy, John. He was so happy to be talking to you, smiling. I just felt like, I guess I feel like this a lot of times on this show, but I just felt like, I could be friends with this guy. I would like to go hang out with this guy. He was just so cool and open about what the song was about, and seemed very happy to be talking about it. And I would hope to be, has it been 40 years since this song came out?
It was released in 85, so coming upon 40 years soon. Yeah, 38 years.
Almost there. I hope that songs that I've written, I will be that happy 40 years after to talk about them as well. I think that that's really, really cool. I mean, John even said that sometimes it's hard to have a hit of this magnitude when you're at your peak in every way, because then you're always chasing it.
Yeah.
And I think your only option really is to embrace it and be like, I did this, and that's not saying anything else about any other music he's written, but to accomplish that and have a song that's touched so many people, that's just incredible.
Yep. And we not only like to be John's friend, we like to be your friend too. So make sure you join our Chris DeMakes A Podcast Facebook group. It's a lot of fun. We talk about stuff related to the episode. We talk about a bunch of stuff in there. Chris is always putting up little polls. It's a lot of fun. So please join. It's free to do so, and we'd love to have you. And I want to thank this week's guest, John Parr, for sitting in with us, and we'll see you next week.
Bowie, Dylan, Marley. You've heard the names and maybe you've heard their songs, but what about the stories behind the records that made titans of music like these so universally loved and important? Join me, Josh Adam Myers, host of The 500, as each week I go through a different album from Rolling Stone magazine's 500 Greatest Albums list from 2012 with an incredible lineup of comedians, actors, and musicians talking about how the music has impacted their lives. New episodes of The 500 come out every Wednesday. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real, honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.